My abusive ex threatened every guy who looked at me until I started dating an MMA fighter. My name's Ava Reed. I'm 27 years old and from Jacksonville, Florida. For almost 3 years, I was trapped in a relationship that looked perfect to everyone but me. Tyler was my ex. Charming, handsome, the kind of guy who could make anyone laugh. At first, I felt lucky to be chosen by him. But slowly, being chosen started feeling a lot like being possessed. He used to say, "I just love you too much." What he meant was, "I want to own you completely." The rules started small: no late nights, no new friends, and absolutely no male friends. Then he began showing up at my office unannounced, just to have lunch. He'd stand too close to my coworkers, scan their faces, and say, "Funny how they can't stop staring." I laughed it off back then. But behind that smile was someone who was starting to count how many steps she could take before he'd notice. Within a year, my life was reduced to him and his accusations. He'd hold my phone, scroll through every message, and say things like, "You don't hide anything from me, right?" It wasn't a question. He began threatening every man who even looked at me. Coworkers, neighbors, friends, they all faded away. If someone so much as laughed near me, Tyler would appear at their door with a warning. Once, a delivery guy left a compliment about my sketchpad linked to his receipt. Tyler found him online and messaged, "Is greater than, next time you see her, pretend you don't." It wasn't love. It was power trying to wear a romantic mask. The fear spread beyond me. People stopped looking my way entirely. Do you know what it's like to enter a room and feel yourself erased? One day, even my own reflection looked blurry. I tried to leave twice. Both times he cried, promised, begged, and swore he'd change. Each time, the peace lasted 2 weeks before the jealousy returned. The third time, I didn't warn him. I just left. A duffel bag, a friend's place, and a number blocked. For months, I disappeared from everywhere we used to go. New hair, new neighborhood, new schedule. I told myself he would eventually get bored. But he didn't. He shifted from public control to private messages. Flowers on my doorstep with, "No card, just guess." Emails with subject lines like, "I still see you." Every ping of my phone felt like a shockwave. Then, one day at a community boxing gym, I met Kai. He wasn't loud or flashy like Tyler. He spoke softly, moved with control instead of rage. And he kept talking about discipline, not dominance. I didn't tell him everything at first. When I mentioned my ex, he said quietly, "People like that feed on fear. Let's make sure you don't have any left." Somehow, for the first time in years, I believed a man could protect me without owning me. But Tyler wasn't done testing my boundaries. And when he found out who Kai really was, his threats finally met the one person who didn't run from them. The first month with Kai felt almost unreal. He never asked to check my phone. He never questioned where I went. He just listened. Really listened like silence was his favorite language. He'd train in the mornings, meet clients at noon, then come home with takeout and peaceful energy. For a while, I convinced myself that my heart pounding at every random buzz of my phone was just habit. But fear doesn't leave quickly, it leaves through repetition of safety. One evening, I was scrolling on the couch while Kai washed dishes. A notification banner slid across my screen. "Unknown number. You don't learn, do you?" My fingers froze. Kai noticed instantly. He dried his hands and knelt beside me. "Tyler." I nodded. He said nothing, just reached, took the phone, and calmly blocked the number. I whispered, "That never stops him." He replied, "Then we don't stop either." There was no bravado, no movie monologue, just certainty that fear's not permanent. And somehow, that steadiness calmed me more than any promise ever had. Weeks later, his messages changed tone. If before he'd wanted to scare me privately, now he wanted me to know he was watching. First, anonymous social media comments, "Cute couple, for now." Then, fake accounts following Kai's training videos, commenting, "She's using you." The worst was a delivery that arrived one Saturday, a white box with nothing inside but a printed note. "You think strength will save you. It won't." Kai held the paper between his fists till it shook, then exhaled slowly and set it down. He said, "He wants a scene. He won't get one." I asked, "Should we call the police?" He answered, "Yes, but not out of panic. Out of record." We filed a report together. The officer's voice was kind but formulaic. "Unless he steps close physically, there's only so much we can do." I walked out feeling like the law measured fear in inches instead of impact. Kai squeezed my hand. You did enough for today. A week later, my company hosted a public open house. Art walls, music, harmless crowd. Tyler showed up. I saw him before he saw me standing near the exit, that easy grin still painted on. My chest went tight. I whispered to Kai, he's here. He didn't glance around fast or react dramatically. He just turned, caught sight, and gently shifted his stance. You could tell in that one motion precisely why he was a fighter. Control, not chaos. Tyler noticed him, recognition flashing behind his smirk. He mouthed something, maybe, nice upgrade. Kai walked over slowly, people watching without understanding. I couldn't hear everything, only certain sharp syllables. When they came closer, Tyler's voice dropped lower. You have no idea what she's like when you're not around. Kai replied, calm as ever. Then it's a good thing I'm around. Tyler's jaw flexed, unsettled by composure he couldn't break. No raised fists, no public meltdown. Just two worlds meeting, control facing calm, fear facing boundary. Tyler left after 5 minutes, pretending nothing had happened. But I knew, walking out of the building with Kai's hand steady on my back, that power had shifted quietly for the first time. 3 days later, the storm returned stronger. My email filled with fake addresses sending threats disguised as concern. He won't always protect you. People who fight get tired. Kai changed every password, installed cameras, even spoke to the building manager. But what helped most was his approach. No shouting, no anger, just practical defense. You don't control storms by standing in the rain, he said. You build shelter. That night, I dreamed that Tyler had no face, and it finally didn't scare me. Saturday morning, Kai was at a small league fight to corner coach his friend. I watched from the audience. Crowd noise, bright lights, energy pulsing like thunder. Mid-round, he looked up, caught my eye, and smiled small, reassuring. For a heartbeat, the entire noise of the arena dropped inside me like silence. Then my phone rang. Unknown number again. I stepped outside, pulse racing, ready to hang up. A voice low, familiar said, I can see you. I froze on the stairway, trying to breathe. Leave me alone, I managed. He laughed softly. You think standing next to a fighter makes you safe? He bleeds like everyone. The call ended. Inside, Kai finished his coaching set, crowd cheering. Outside, I felt my lungs fail me. Because Tyler wasn't just threatening anymore, he was nearby. By the time Kai and I reached the car later, my fear had grown legs. I didn't hide it. I told him about the call, word for word. His jaw set firm, but his voice stayed gentle. Okay. Then we moved smarter. He drove me home, eyes scanning mirrors but hands steady on the wheel. When we reached the parking lot, I saw 2 deep scratches across my car door like keys dragged on purpose. White paint beneath glinting in moonlight. Kai whispered, he was here. He bent, ran his thumb over the marks, looked up, quiet fire in his gaze. I'm going to take care of this, not for pride, for peace. I knew what that meant. He wasn't looking for confrontation, he was planning protection. That night, sleep felt distant again. Every creak outside made my chest tighten. But this time, the fear wasn't paralyzing, it was preparing me. Because what happened 2 nights later in that same parking lot would prove exactly how much control Tyler had lost and how much I had finally regained. 2 nights later, the air in the parking lot felt different, too quiet, too heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Kai had gone upstairs to shower after training. I was locking my car when a shadow moved near the far end of the street. The motion sensor light flickered. Then a voice called softly, Ava. My spine went cold. No one here knew my name. Tyler stepped forward, hands in his jacket pockets, pretending not to be dangerous. Don't scream, he said. I'm not here to hurt you. He used that same calm tone he used to use before twisting a situation into guilt. I stayed near the driver's door, keys between my fingers. He smiled. So, this is the new life? Gym bags, broken cars, pretending you're safe? I didn't answer. The light buzzed overhead, a single moth circling above us. He took 1 step closer. You blocked me everywhere, you filed little papers with the police, and yet here we are. It's almost cute. I opened my mouth, but my voice was gone. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes were the same. That shine of knowing exactly where fear hides. I didn't come to fight, he continued. I just wanted to see who you replaced me with. I whispered. You mean who I replaced fear with? That cracked his smile. Before he could reply, a second voice echoed from behind him. Guy! Tyler turned. Kai had stepped into the light, towel still around his neck. His expression didn't change, but his posture did, solid, centered, all calm control. Tyler chuckled. So this is the famous fighter. Kai's tone was measured. Go home, man. Whatever you think you want, it's not here. She's mine, Tyler blurted. No, Kai said softly. She just stopped being yours the moment you needed fear to keep her. Something in his stillness made Tyler hesitate. He muttered, You think you scare me? Kai shook his head. That's the difference between us. I'm not trying to. For a tense moment, the only sound was the buzzing lamp above. Then Tyler shoved his hands deeper into his pockets and walked backward to his car. He started the engine, revved it once like a statement, then drove off into the darkness. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Kai walked over, not touching me until I nodded. He said, You did nothing wrong. He's trying to reclaim a stage he lost. I looked at the scratches on my car again. Each one felt less like a wound, more like evidence. That night, we filed another police report. This time, they took it seriously. Neighbor cameras had caught part of it. The officer promised, We'll keep patrols near the area for a while. Kai asked, Feel safer? I said, I feel seen. The next week was the first one in years where my phone stayed silent. No texts, no shadow in notifications, no reminder that safety was temporary. Kai noticed I started sleeping through the night again. He'd leave small notes on the fridge before leaving for training. You don't owe fear any more rent. One morning, I opened social media out of habit and froze. Tyler's account was gone, deactivated. No posts, nothing. Maybe he moved on. Maybe the police warning worked. Or maybe, finally, he realized controlling me required one thing he'd lost forever access. Still, healing doesn't happen automatically. Habits linger. If someone raised their voice too quickly, my body still tensed. Kai never told me to just get over it. He'd simply stand beside me until I slowed my breathing again. 2 weeks later, my company announced an exhibition event for clients. Part of me wanted to skip. Crowds still made me uneasy, and the memory of that first confrontation hadn't faded. Kai said, You should go. You deserve to be seen for your work, not your scars. So I did. The event was loud but bright, people laughing, networking. I smiled, signed brochures, and felt almost normal. Almost. Halfway through the evening, a staff guard tapped my shoulder. Miss Reed, there's a gentleman at the entrance asking for you. Ice fluttered up my spine. Who? Didn't give a name, said he's an old friend. My pulse hammered. I handed my display tablet to another coworker and stepped toward the glass doors. Outside, under the streetlight, stood a thick envelope taped to the door with my name scrawled across it. No one around. Inside, the last letter I ever received from Tyler. You won. Keep your peace. I'll keep my distance, but don't forget I was the lesson. The handwriting trembled. Maybe he had written it angry. Maybe regretful. Either way, it looked finished. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let the paper fold in my hand like a curtain finally closing. That night, I burned it carefully over the kitchen sink. Kai watched without comment. Ash turned the words into smoke. The smoke floated out the window and was gone. He asked, Do you feel lighter? I said, Not lighter. Clearer. He smiled. Same thing. For once, quiet didn't sound like waiting, it sounded like living. Weeks rolled into steady rhythm. My laughter stopped, sounding borrowed. I joined Kai's gym not to learn how to fight, just to learn how to breathe like he did. He told me, discipline isn't about winning, it's about peace. Each punch against the training pad felt like a goodbye. Each deep breath, a rebirth. I could finally tell my story out loud, without shaking. Not as a warning, but as proof that trauma doesn't define you, boundaries do. But closure is rarely quiet forever. Months later, a single news article about a local accident would remind me exactly how complicated freedom can feel. It was early spring when that headline appeared on my phone. Local man injured in bar altercation, police investigating possible assault charges. The photo was grainy, but I recognized him anyway, Tyler. The world blurred for a second. The article said he'd been drinking, started a fight with another man, and ended up in the hospital with a broken wrist. I stared at the screen until Kai came in from his run. He wiped sweat from his brow. What's wrong? I turned the phone toward him. It's him. Kai read silently, then handed it back. Do you want to talk about it? I shook my head. No. I just feel, weirdly, nothing. And that scared me a little, the weightlessness of indifference. For the first time, Tyler's name didn't feel like a chain, just a sound. The next few days, old guilt tried sneaking back. What if he never changed, because I never really confronted him? What if silence wasn't mercy, but escape? Kai sensed the shift without me saying anything. That night over dinner he said, "You don't owe unfinished stories to people who wrote their own endings." I smiled faintly. Maybe, but it's strange how some nightmares ask politely to be remembered. He reached across the table. Then remember it as something you survived, not something you still owe. The routine helped gym, work, long coastal drives with the windows down. Every morning smelled a little more like peace. But healing is never linear. Sometimes it sneaks backward when you're not looking. One Saturday, I received a letter forwarded from my old address. No name on the envelope this time, just shaky handwriting. Inside was a single line written on plain paper. "Guess you finally found someone who could fight back." No signature. No proof. But I didn't need it. I folded it gently, placed it in a drawer, and refused to let it rewrite progress. Kai saw my expression when I closed the drawer. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "You know the difference between caution and fear now. That's enough." That night, I slept 8 full hours. No nightmares, no replay. Summer came fast. Work exploded, new clients, new collaborations, travel opportunities. For the first time, I felt ready to take one. When I told Kai, he grinned. "You on a plane. Progress." "It's a conference," I said. 3 days, Miami. He nodded. "I'll miss you, but you need this. Go prove that peace travels too." I laughed. That should be on a mug. But even with excitement bubbling inside, I felt that tiny flicker of anxiety, that memory of airports and numbers, and him once sending tickets to surprise me. At the airport check-in line, I kept glancing at the messages tab on my phone. Nothing appeared. For the first time in years, silence actually felt like silence. The conference was bright, busy, full of strangers who only saw me for my work. I walked into panel halls, shook hands, accepted compliments, and none of them triggered panic. No invisible eyes watching. No ghost in the crowd. On the last morning, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject, apology. My heart jumped, then settled. I opened it. "Ava, I've been in therapy since the incident. The doctor says I need to make amends. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you were right. Control isn't love. It never was. I hope your peace lasts longer than our pain. T." I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. There was no flood of confusion or nostalgia, just a quiet understanding that this was confirmation, not connection. I whispered to myself, "Finally." I didn't reply. Apologies are often chapters meant to be read, not reopened. Back home, Kai met me at arrivals with flowers, and that half smile I always trusted. "How was it?" he asked. "Peaceful," I said. He laughed. "That's the best word anyone can bring home." We drove back through the coastal highway, sky melting into sunset. Halfway home, he said, "You know, I used to think fighters only fought inside arenas. Turns out the real fight is usually invisible." I glanced at him. "Then I must be a champion." He grinned. "Undefeated." We didn't talk about Tyler again. It wasn't avoidance, it was freedom. Weeks later, something small but significant happened. I was walking through a mall when a man passed by and smiled, a harmless, everyday gesture. My first instinct was old fear. My second was calm recognition. I smiled back. That simple reaction felt like reclaiming all the moments I'd lost to worry. Later that night, I told Kai about it. He said, "So when do you finally write down your story?" I blinked. "Why would I?" "Because people think strength looks like fists," he said. "They need to see it looks like this." I thought about it for days. A week later, I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began typing. This is not a story about abuse. It's a story about unlearning it. At first, the words stumbled out, messy and uneven. Then they found rhythm. Paragraph after paragraph, I poured everything: fear, leaving, rebuilding, and the strange peace that follows survival. When I finished, the document counter blinked back at me. Words, 5,003. I smiled. Symmetry. I clicked save, then close. It didn't matter if anyone ever read it. It mattered that I finally could. But that simple act of writing what happened would end up changing more lives than my own, because one reader would reach out weeks later with a message that reminded me why stories matter. 2 weeks after posting that piece online, I wasn't thinking about it anymore. It had felt like therapy, a digital letter to my past self that I'd quietly released into the world. I hadn't even signed my full name, just initials. One Tuesday morning, my inbox pinged. Subject line, "Thank you." I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But the opening line caught my eye. "I don't know you, but your story showed up at exactly the right time." The message was from a woman named Jenna, a teacher from Colorado. She wrote about how she'd been living with the exact same fear, how she'd planned to stay quiet forever until she read my essay. She wrote, "Is greater than, you didn't tell me to leave, you showed me what leaving could look like." Halfway through reading it, I was crying without realizing it. For the first time, my pain had paid rent in something good. When Kai came home from training, I handed him the laptop. He read quietly, then set it down and whispered, "So now your fight saves people too." I smiled through tears. I think that's the only way to truly win. Over the next few weeks, more messages trickled in. Some were short, simple thank yous. Others told whole stories of fear and courage and starting over. I replied to as many as I could, careful not to turn into a counselor, just a witness. One line kept repeating in different wording, "Is greater than, you made me feel less crazy." Those words hit differently, because I remembered sitting on my bathroom floor 2 years ago, wondering if maybe I was the crazy one. Now, strangers were thanking me for making sanity sound possible again. Healing had multiplied. By midsummer, the local women's shelter invited me to speak at an awareness event. At first, I refused. Public microphones still made me nervous. Kai said gently, "You've already done the hardest part. You told the truth. Saying it out loud is just sound." So I agreed. I spent nights drafting what I'd say. Short, steady, no sensationalism. When the day came, the small auditorium filled with survivors, advocates, and quiet bravery. As I stepped up to the podium, my hands trembled exactly once. Then they steadied. "I used to think surviving meant running," I began. "But real survival is staying in your own life, without permission from fear." People nodded, some cried. I finished with a line that wasn't in my notes at all. "Control only works until someone believes their peace is worth defending." Applause rose like a wave, soft and strong at once. Afterward, a young man approached nervous, maybe 18, wearing a gym hoodie. He said, "My mom used to be like you. She left 2 years ago. Thank you for helping me understand her." That moment broke something beautiful in me. For the first time, I understood my story wasn't about me, it was for others. That evening, Kai and I drove home in comfortable silence. Windows down, evening air warm, city lights reflecting off the windshield. He reached over, took my hand, and said quietly, "You realize this, right? You don't flinch anymore." He was right. I didn't. Not at sudden noises, not at new faces, not at the word love. At a red light, he added, "You know what the biggest win is? It's not the absence of fear, it's the presence of choice." I looked at him. The man who never tried to save me just stood beside me until I saved myself. And I whispered, "Then we're both undefeated." Months later, life had settled into rhythm. Mornings smelled like coffee instead of anxiety. The sound of keys against the counter no longer meant danger, it meant breakfast. But one quiet evening, sitting on our balcony watching the sunset, Kai handed me a small envelope. "What's this?" I asked. He smiled. "Something I picked up from the mail." Inside was a folded note and a small silver pendant in the shape of an open door. The note read, "Freedom is best worn close to the heart. Thank you for showing me the handle." Yay. Yenna. I closed my eyes and laughed softly. She actually sent this through the mail. Kai fastened the pendant around my neck. "Looks good on you," he said. It felt lighter than gold. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about Tyler not with anger or fear, but distance. People like him live on borrowed control and eventually the debt comes due. I don't wonder where he is. I don't hope he's sorry. I just hope he's learning. Because no one leaves as a victim and stays one forever. Some of us become reminders. Every morning when I catch my reflection, I see 2 versions of me, the girl who once asked for safety and the woman who built it herself. The second one quietly thanks the first for surviving long enough to hand her the tools. Now, when my students at the gym ask why I train if I never compete, I tell them, not every fight is televised, some are invisible, and those are the ones worth winning. They smile, thinking I mean technique. But I know better. Combat isn't about hitting back, it's about standing your ground when fear walks in wearing familiarity. Tonight, as I switch off my phone and set it face down, I whisper to the empty room, I'm not afraid of another message. Because the story that used to control me now belongs to everyone it can protect. And if my ex ever wonders what became of me, I hope someone tells him. She stopped looking over her shoulder. She started living forward. Subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories like this.